Mia, how's it going?
Great, Phil. Thank you for having me. I just excited.
Thank you for coming on, and you're joining us from Australia.
Absolutely. Western Australia. Actually, I haven't, I know you thought I have been here before, but I haven't. I lived in New Zealand. So it's a first,
Okay.
yeah, but I'm with my soul family, like my best friends, and it's
Mhm.
amazing, amazing place surrounded by nature, and I just love it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's summer there, right?
Yeah, right now it's summer.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
in the part of Western Australia, when people know Perth, and it's about like 4 hours drive down south. So it's can be breezy at times, so the weather changes, but it's perfect, beautiful, and I just can look at the river right now when I'm looking out, so it's can't
Very
complain. Beautiful.
centering, as they say.
Yeah, it is.
I came across your story on Facebook, and we had a dialogue a while back, and here we are. So you grew up in Germany, and you started boxing at a young age?
No, I was an athlete since I was 3 years old, but I started with swimming,
Uh-huh.
gymnastics, it's running. But I
Mhm.
started boxing when I actually went to New Zealand after a couple of years there. I moved to New
Okay.
Zealand. Well, I traveled to New Zealand when I was 25, which was not, I didn't plan to stay. It was just like an OE kind
Mhm.
of experience that I wanted to have after I finished
Mhm.
my master's in sports science in Germany. I've
Mhm.
always been surrounded by sports through my family, also the way I grew up. I grew up in a very small village in Germany. Basically, I'm surprised you can actually find it on Google. And it's like, less than 100 people, one street, 10 houses, 500 cows kind of a thing.
Uh-huh.
And so I made it out of there. And that's how I grew up. And I was always surrounded by sports. So it was like, the cool thing is when grow up in such a small community is that the influence is quite easy, the ripple effect, bushfire kind of this energy. And yeah, so sports was a big thing there, football or soccer,
Mhm.
athletics, gymnastics, and this kind of thing. And pretty much East Germany, right? And I live close to the border from Poland, and I have also Polish roots. So one of my grandparents came from there. So it's all like a mixture. But coming back to the question of boxing, yeah, I started it in New Zealand because someone asked me and said I would be a great boxer, and something told me I should try it. And I absolutely fell in love with the sports. Yeah.
I did martial arts. Like at 17, I was 240 pounds. I couldn't really compete. I would have to compete with the adults, but I mean, it was fun for what it was. My version of athletics is weightlifting, cardio, that kind of thing. As I've gotten older, I feel like it's a little less impactful on the joints. It keeps you strong and it keeps you moving. So like I had a guy on, he said, movement is medicine. So I try to live by that motto now. So what led you down the path that you're on now? Because I know that you tend to travel quite a bit. Is there something in your journey that you're looking for, or what made you want to decide to say, "Hey, I want to have a nomadic life"? Right? Do you kind of bounce around from place to place?
Well, it's a pretty good question because, like, you can imagine how I said how I grew up, right? In the German system, that's pretty much conditioned. Like go to university or you do get your apprenticeship, then you get your job, stay 40 years in the same job, get
Hmm.
your partner, kids, plant a tree, build a house, this kind of stuff. But I have always had this inside of me to travel. Even when I was small, I would always stay with other people, like, at
Hmm.
their places and with my friends, like really all the time and stay overnight. I was like a thing and exploring. Of course, I did not plan to stay in New Zealand because I finished my master's. I had opportunities to actually write my PhD at the university, things like that. So I had opportunities and I had my partner, my boyfriend at that time back in Germany waiting for me because I was only meant to go for 7 months, right? But something like when I look back now, things started to shift internally already massively before I went. Of course, that's how it happens, but I wasn't conscious and aware enough at that time. And I felt like this is not the right thing. The more he was a little bit older than me, and the more he wanted to actually settle down, the more I wanted to escape from it. And of course, it
Yeah.
had nothing to do with him. It was all within me and all the things from that I needed to process. So basically, when I then went to New Zealand, I didn't speak English, probably a couple of words, and I did not, you know, travel with a lot of money either. I came with an apple and an egg. In fact, the coolest story of that whole thing is it was so typical me. I did not even plan anything. I had like 2 nights booked in a hostel in Auckland. And guess what? Took the wrong credit card. So I couldn't even get cash out at that time. Wasn't as easy as it is now, right? We're talking about it was
Hmm.
2012. Honestly, kid you not, I had like a farewell gift from one of my fitness groups at that time, and they, because they did this gift and they had like 20 no 70 New Zealand dollars cash, like as a gift, right? I never knew I actually needed that, but I had it with me and I did use it for some food and things like that. And obviously I managed then to get money through a transfer, Union Transfer, Western, whatever it was still very complicated and clunky at that time, not as easy as it is now, right? And so, yeah, this is how my journey started. I absolutely hated Auckland at that time. I was so overwhelmed because I guess I couldn't speak English, all the people, everything was like, wow, I was jet lagged. I had no idea of jet lag at that time. It was the first time I ever flew that far, right? So I went on my journey, and I think because I've always been very intuitive and I have a very non-linear way of living. I always say I'm not smart, I'm delusional. And it is. And
Mhm.
and I guess it got more activated because I was out of the system, out of the conditioning where I grew up. I think that's is really a big thing when you do that because you get confronted with who you truly are, what's really going on. And it was very challenging at the beginning, to be really honest. But then the more I went on my journey, I realized I don't want to have this relationship. I don't want to go back to Germany. I don't want the system. And yeah, so this is how my whole journey started. And I was for a long time in New Zealand for about 11, almost 12 years. But of course, within New Zealand, I traveled a bit. But yeah, like a few places here and there. I moved a lot. And this is where my nomad came in and I had my experiences, of course. And I was like figuring myself out. And yeah, of course, boxing happened. And then again, because of boxing, you have a very disciplined lifestyle, very much focused, right? Training twice a day because I took that serious. I go 100% in and actually 150, and I try to reach the highest path as possible. That's just my nature.
Mhm.
And I think it's a good thing. Sometimes maybe it can trap me, which it did at times. And yeah, so basically I had a journey of 8 years completely, training elite amateur and competing on a high level, which was amazing, great experience, and accelerated my whole awakening journey. And then it came to a time where I realized I felt like I was not completely fulfilled. I was fulfilled in a sense of like boxing, right? That was
Mhm.
completely taking 80% of the time, but there was more that needed to come through. And I realized already way before that I actually wanted to leave New Zealand. Actually, before COVID, I felt like, there's something calling me. I wanted to go Bali, Spain, right? But then I met
Mhm.
my ex-partner at that time. And then boxing got really serious. And so the universe kept me longer for several reasons, which is beautiful. And then it came to a time where I said, okay, I just have to go. And I went back to Europe, actually. Yeah.
You were talking about breaking those familial, like family boundaries of being in the same town, and I moved away when I was in my 20s. When I graduated surgical tech school, the market was oversaturated, so I had to go to Louisiana to work. It's the only place, I could have probably have found something, but I was going through other stuff at the time. So things have a way of working the way they're supposed to, right? Like
Mm.
I had to go out there to do some healing and to kind of find who I was because I'd never lived away from home. I'd never had my own place, none of that stuff. So I like what you did was you had a goal to break that cycle of staying in the same small town. Because
Mm.
from the way that you describe the town, it's obviously not a lot of opportunity there. And you don't want to feel bogged down because life is gone in an instant. It feels limitless. It's fleeting at the same, so you have to do what your heart desires at times. But
Yeah.
sometimes you need to have some restraint, like you spent the time to do the boxing and and all that. But what drew you to that particular sport? What, like you said, it was the technicality of it? Was it the physicality? Or
I always wanted to do martial arts since I was a kid. I mean, who didn't dream, karate kid and things? I mean, maybe not so usual
right?
maybe for women or for females,
Yeah.
but because I grew up with my three older brothers and I had three older
Mhm,
sisters, but mainly with my
mhm,
brothers around me. So I was very boyish, and my father also raised me like that and in this way. And to be honest, when I did gymnastics, I did it because I was in a system and my
mhm.
parents put me in there. Athletics, running, the same thing. And the first time I actually chose I actually did dancing in between for 10 years, like modern
Okay.
contemporary dance and two different dance groups, also competing, which was beautiful and amazing.
Mhm,
And that's the first time I chose something that I wanted to do. And boxing also was my choice. What I remember the first time, even now I get goosebumps, the first time I punched with my first boxing coach, he was from Samoa,
mhm.
very experienced as well, trained a few professional boxers as well, all, from different places of the world. And I just felt something. I felt spirit. I'm gonna be honest. I
Mhm.
felt spirit. I felt my father around who passed away when I was 13. Unfortunately, I felt everything, and I was like, "What the fuck?" It was crazy. What happened was, firstly, because I chose that for myself. There was no conditioning, no external let me on, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going because I want to be an Olympic athlete, which I always wanted to be, but it was
Mm,
really my thing from my internal, like innate motivation. And the second thing is challenged me like nothing ever has challenged me before, like physically, mentally, energetically, emotionally, because you really push towards the limits. But it was in a way I've never experienced it before. It just like brought everything that like kept me. And I was so intrigued because when I'm challenged, or basically when I fail at something, that's not for me to stop. That's not a stop sign for me. It's an invitation. I invite it in. I'm like, okay. And I also I think what I should point out at that time, I was already like 30. I'm 38
mm,
now,
mhm.
or 29, I guess, when I started. Like most people stop at that time, especially such a full contact sport.
Yeah.
Although martial arts is something it's actually really good to start more mature, but boxing, of course, I was written off.
Mhm.
And to explain a little bit, like amateurs, like amateur boxing, which is the Olympic path, this kind of thing, is with boxing, it stops with 40. You can only compete at your 40. Professional boxing, you can do whatever, unless
Yeah.
your body can't do it anymore. And so I was basically written off. Right. But I thrive in that ground. That's my fertile soil for me to grow. But it was also very challenging at times, right? Because it wasn't easy. It's a very male dominated sport. Then I was already old. I constantly got like challenged with all these limiting beliefs, and it was just a reflection of what I needed to let go of as well, because I had to first and foremost prove it to myself that I can do it. Because I always ask my question, who am I doing that for? Is it because I want to prove people wrong, or is it just for myself? And that was a real manifestation of that, to really do it for myself. And it was more about, it wasn't so much, as I said before, of course the ego comes into wanting to win, having titles and making as fast as possible. But the question wasn't about that. It was actually, who do I need to become? What is this version of me actually doing? How does she train, eat, sleep, think, walk, talk, act, these kind of things? And that was the thrill of it all for me, to be really
Mhm.
honest. And it taught me so much beyond
Oh,
imagination. And I can apply that now to my life, to every area in my life. And that's the most powerful tool I got out of it, to be really honest.
I think that discipline is such a huge part of life. Like for me, I get up 4:45. Well, not I'm up by 6 now. I get up for 4:45 for work is what I was going at, but I get up around, 5:30, 6 o'clock, coffee, a walk, then I do some sort of other cardio, and then it's weights, and then it's, I don't touch food until I've had at least an hour workout. But so I think when you have a disciplined and regimented life, I think it brings you in more control of your surroundings. I think that when you have this, like when people are throwing stuff at you, you can kind of bob and weave with it. I think the discipline is one of the cornerstones of being able to succeed in multiple walks of life, just not necessarily, athletics or academics, but to be able to train and to put your body through that kind of arduous task of learning how to box, sparring, and all. I hated sparring when I was doing martial arts because I just, I just don't like getting hit and I don't like hitting people. So
I love it.
it's just,
It's my
yeah, yeah,
favorite
no, and,
part.
and that's good, yeah, 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 exactly. Like, and that's and like, but then again, I've always been a gentle giant. I don't ever want to hurt anybody unless I absolutely have to, but it was fun getting kicked in the head a couple times. It lets you take a hit, and you're like, I'm not made of glass. I can do this. So after your boxing was done, what did you start doing after that?
Wow, that's an interesting story, actually, because I didn't decide that as stunner, because when I left, New Zealand was 2024 in April on the 30th to be exact. And I had actually my pinnacle before that. I actually represented New Zealand against Australia. And that was an
Nice.
amazing opportunity, that came out of nowhere. But when I say out of nowhere, it was actually something that I was focusing on and putting, my thoughts and intentions into all from day one. Right. And it happened. I was amazing. And then, of course, I left. I left everything behind because I went back to Europe. I was meant to go for a couple of months to Germany. And then I thought I will move to Spain and do my thing. And never is that plan, right? But I never,
Mhm.
I thought, oh yeah, and then I can do it in Europe because I was actually looking for, because New Zealand is a small country itself as well. So my sparring partners were very limited and my opponents were like very limited as well in a way. And it was great. I mean, they're all amazing. And
Mhm.
so we learned a lot from each other and things like that. But I thought, oh, great, Europe, so many opportunities. I can box. And, I would never, I didn't want to let it go. Hell no. That was like my identity. It was like part of me. It was like my foundation of everything. And but interesting, God had a different plan for me because when I did find a trainings club in Germany for 3 weeks when I was home, and they actually wanted to put me into fights because I was still fight fit, right? I never stopped training and things like that, despite all the changes I went through. It was massive, massive transformation, right? But I just thought this is what keeps me going. Anyways, I left Germany earlier than expected, way earlier. It was like a 24-hour decision because it didn't work well with family dynamics. It was just toxic for me at that time. And I
Mhm.
could not handle it anymore. My system was so overloaded. And even despite me not being in a financial position to do it, because I wanted to actually be home for a couple of months and spend the summer there with my nieces, nephews, siblings, family, and recover
Mhm.
from all my changes and also with my business, give it a little bit of breathing time, get a little bit of buffer finances so I can actually move comfortable to
Mhm.
Spain.
Right.
But that was God's plan. So I found I did actually travel through Europe or like Spain with house sitting and pet sitting. That's what I did. I did that in New Zealand as well. And I love animals. So it's a great way. You don't have to pay rent. You get to know the surroundings and you can look after animals, which is beautiful for me to do. And so, yeah, I ended up having this house sit for a month there. And so, yeah, basically I traveled to Spain and it's interesting because every single time I tried to be like, I tried to manufacture it in a way like I need to be close somewhere where I can go to boxing or a gym or la la. And for some reason, it never was available to me. The transport was too difficult. The timing's too late, like 9 p.m. And I'm like, no, I'm going to bed. What is going on? And it was literally,
Yeah.
I was getting frustrated. I was like, come on, God, you really want me to not do this right now? What's going on? But I need it. I need it.
Mhm.
That's the
Right.
keyword here. I was really needing it. But the whole journey then for 2 years led me away from it. There would always be like a little spark here and there. I would maybe have a sparring opportunity there, or I could do some back work, blah, blah. But what
Mhm.
I was trying to do is I was trying to keep my old rhythm. I was trying to keep my old way. And I was meant to because I needed to go really, really deep into my own transformation and healing journey. A lot, a lot came up. It was like a whole Pandora box open up. I'm, an intuitive medium, soul guide, multidimensional. I do my approach and my program is quantum embodiment. Of course, it could work a lot with energy because my father was a healer too. So that was all part of it to go really, really deep. But first, you have to clean out your own shit, right? In order
Of
to
course.
really see that and manifest or move into that new version. And that led me on a very deep journey. I have done a lot of transformation and healing and things like that, especially also for my childhood trauma. But that was deep stuff, especially because I was on my own in a country where I don't know anyone, don't speak the language. Plus, my finances were always low, zero. I had days where many times rock bottom, I talk open about it, where I had like literally 30 cents on my bank account and I did not know, will I have food? A lot of shame about what is going on, Mia. Like, oh my God, you're 36, whatever. And I did felt shame to ask my family, right, for money and things like that. I just felt so like a loser at that time, right? Because you can imagine I let go of everything, like my roots, everything that defined me until that point. But that was the whole point. That was what God wanted me to do. Because when you truly let go of everything you define yourself by, then you get to really see who and what you truly are. And not many people embark that. I could have had easily said, okay, I go back to Germany now. I would have had a safe job there. People would take me with, I can be a teacher, teach PT at schools and things like that. They wanted me. Everybody would have offered me a job, but I said, no way. I chose that path. I chose to follow my soul. Whew, many times I was down on my knees praying and be like, okay, what is it teaching me? Yeah, so many moments.
Yeah. Well, you definitely have to be open to those moments as well, right? So the fact that you had this passion for boxing and then that passion started to dwindle and it turned into something else because sometimes we see what we want, but God or universe, whatever you want to call it, has a different plan, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, you sometimes you have to open your soul up to being able to understand the difference and saying, hey, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe this is what maybe I need to go a different route, and then maybe I can come back to this later. And then that's the thing. We have this. I don't know if it's a gene or a drive in our bodies or in our brains to where we want what we want, no matter how much. And sometimes you have to listen to your brain and listen to your own soul and say, it's not for me right now. I think you've lived a very interesting life. The fact that you're not afraid to move around. So when I was younger, my father kept us moved every 2 years, right? And it was always this one shitty state to another one. So I was born in Florida. I lived in West Virginia, Michigan, and yeah, before the age of 5, I had lived in like 3 different states. It wasn't a very pleasant experience. I think because we moved around so much and when I was younger, it made me want to have more of a root.
Mm,
So you're kind of the opposite of me. And it wasn't fun. He would get sick of something. Let's move. And then,
mm,
and then we would move. Let's say we were West Virginia, for example, which is where he was from and my mom is from. And we would move 3 or 4 times in that state in that 2 year period.
yeah.
So there was never like any real roots being set down. So when we came back to Florida when I was in the 3rd grade, so I was like 8, 9, ever how old that is, he wanted to move back to West Virginia. My mom was like, absolutely not.
Mm,
I had a hard enough time making friends and because I was a poor kid and all that. So, it's like, and then my dad was considerably older than me. He was 50 something when I was born. So there was
yeah.
just, kids were like meant to be seen, not heard at him. And, so, but my mom kept me alive. So there
Thank
you go.
God.
That's thank God. The idea of, and now as I've gotten older and, like when we were talking off air before we started recording that, I do eventually would like to retire in Europe somewhere. I want to do that before I get too old to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So what was that aha moment when you realized that all this toxicity was coming back when you went back to Germany? Like you just said, because I think it's commendable that you went back, you had a plan, but something happened and you said, I'm not doing it. And so because you wanted to protect yourself. So I know that because with my family, I don't always get along with them.
Mm,
So I understand where you're coming from. But I mean, the fact that you were able to say, hey, I want to go protect myself from this is also commendable as well.
yeah.
I mean, and
Thank
then
you.
what made you feel like it was just, do you think it was all the traveling and the fact that you had discovered who you were?
Yeah, I had discovered who I truly was and that I choose a different path, that I don't choose the
Hmm.
conditioned path in the matrix because I worked so much to get out of the matrix and decondition,
Hmm.
unlearn. And I wanted to relearn new things out, because we are like an AI bot. We can completely, recalibrate ourselves, train ourselves the way we want. But first we have to see what we're made of, right? And you can't bypass that path. And that's what most people do. Or they try to put on new things and affirmations and la la la, but you need to first go, and that's also what I live by. You have to really go deep into the soil. That I think the gardening analogy is really the best because you can have the best seed ever to plant. But if your soil is bleeded, full of shit and gunk, this will all go into the growth of whatever you're planting. And that's just a fact. There's nothing wrong. It's not about blaming or shaming. It's about being really neutral and objective about it. What is actually going on? And, I brought a lot of trauma from my childhood because you said this beautifully. Like, of course, I appeared to live in a very rooted space, right? There was one space, but there was a lot of
Hmm.
disruption. I don't know what it feels
Right.
to have a safe home because there was violence, abuse, sexual abuse. And in the village, as you can imagine, like the people were talking all the time because my family was always in the spotlight. Always people would talk, like
Gotcha.
always, oh, look at this, and there's something wrong, they're dirty, this, never had the nicest clothes. I had to just wear that. Didn't make me feel great. But
Hmm.
as a kid, you don't care actually. It's only the people that make you feel like it's not good enough. Because as a kid, like fuck, you just want to move, right? You want to go in the dirt, but just don't care about the clothes really, right? And so
Right.
yeah, that was the whole thing. And then in my family, yeah, it was never fully processed. It was always like put under the carpet. So there was no like really like there was no emotional availability, no emotional expression. I mean, I see it now this way. I love my family. I love my mom. I love all of them. And they have done their very best with whatever they had available at the time and wherever their consciousness was at that time. And that's what I learned to appreciate. And that's the truth. But now the path and the confrontation I had was with one of my brothers in Germany. And also I understood. I literally, even though he hurt me so much at that time, that I, in the same breath, and that's all the work I did and keep doing. In the same breath, I already said that night, thank you. Thank you for hurting me so much because you pushed me out. So I actually accelerate my journey right now. I speed up the timeline because if I would have stayed
Exactly.
longer, I would have probably chosen different things and would have kept me maybe longer than I ever wanted to be, right? Not that this would have been wrong, but I needed to be on this journey. That was my highest timeline in that moment. That was just what my soul needed. And to fully trust that. And so I could reflect and to accept that, right? I can honestly say that sometimes I feel like, oh, Mia, you have a lot of black and white thinking. Not only because I feel this way, it doesn't mean that everybody needs to think that way, that there's coloring in
Exactly.
between, there are nuances. So I was like, look, that's what he wants to do, or this is how my family lives, and that's fine. I love them for that. But I can't do it. I just, it's not for me, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with me or with them. It's just a matter of like, the two different radio stations. You want to tune into two different radio stations. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Nobody would ever judge someone that you want to listen to rock and roll and I want to listen to hip hop. There's nothing wrong. And so I learned that. But of course, it takes some time. It takes some time to get to that point, right? And to be so honest with yourself. And so that gave me then the chance to really go deep in when I was alone or, like really solitude the past 2 years. And what happened because of boxing, I was so busy that even though I did my meditations and works and things like that, but I was also not in a, my relationship wasn't really right for me either. But because I was really so single focus on boxing, that it took away for me the actually focusing what I truly need, want. And that was this time now, the past 2 years, where I could really go really, really deep and to learn to fully trust myself and develop that self-trust within myself to really know I can do anything. I'm capable of doing that. And I just need to trust and go for it.
And that's a valid point because I think a lot of people they want to stay plugged into the matrix,
Mm.
because comfort is where dreams go to die.
Absolutely.
You give a person good food, cheap entertainment, and they will forget their dreams. And then I've been stagnant in my life. My second marriage was an absolute dumpster fire, because I was so worried about that person being happy that I decided to just say fuck my own.
Yeah.
I felt like I had to walk on eggshells.
Mm.
So like, what's going to happen today? you know,
Yeah.
so I put my emotion and myself on the back burner, and now my girlfriend Veronica is just she's loved me in all the right places to make me realize that I'm a good person, and not that I ever thought that I was a bad one, but it was just like I don't have to fix everything because you have to protect your heart and you have to protect your own soul. And when you have someone in your life that's causing negativity, you really need to just go. And I got more days behind me than I do in front of me. It depends on what God's got in store for that. I'm going to do the best I can to live my life as a good person. And if somebody needs help, I'll do it. But what I will not do is I will not have someone that is going to drag me down and be a millstone around my neck and make my life worse. And and that's what a lot of people do because they get into this cycle, and it's fear of being mean, it's fear of being callous or whatever. And it's there's nothing wrong with telling someone fuck off.
Yeah.
But you also have to have, you have to give people a little bit of grace and understand. It's like I think I may have said it, excuse me.
That's you.
I may have said it before on the show. When I'm training somebody at work, like a new scrub tech, I tell them, if somebody's having a bad day, let them have their bad day. And they said, well, what if they're mean? Well, then let them be mean because you don't know what their home life is like. And if they're a decent person, they'll come back and they'll apologize. But so I said, people are not 2-dimensional. They're not 1-dimensional. They're not 4-dimensional. They're multi-dimensional beings. So it's not just looking at the person that told you to fuck off. It's looking at the person like, what's their home life like? Are they having financial problems? Is their spouse beating them? Is their spouse abusing them in some way? You just don't know. So it's like you have to like look at people as through the lens of how I would want to be treated,
Yeah.
you know? So, and I think that people don't do that anymore. We just, like somebody cuts you off in traffic and like, you want to go kick their ass or something. But,
Yeah.
but it's like things aren't done out of malice. They're usually done out of ignorance.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah.
when it comes to this like nomadic life, like how do you plan where you want to go? You just like throw a dart at a map. What do you do?
Hey, it's a good idea. I think I should write this down right now. It's a very it's an intuitive thing. Of course, like the Australian part, that was something I had my eyes on since a year because I wanted to see my best friends. And but how I get there, there's no real plan in between. Of course, some, like Bali, yeah, that was through a dream actually, because when I was in Spain, I left in the middle of summer, which who does that? But I had a dream, and there was like a medicine woman coming to me because I work intensely with, dreams, all the energetics. And she said, you need to come here, you need to go to Bali. And I was like, okay, interesting. And Bali was always on my thing. So I thought, hey, this actually sounds really good, because it would be like an in between, and then I can go to Australia. Also, budgeting wise, it was great because I was coming to a point. I did like over a year house sitting, constantly moving, and all the animals, and that's a full time job. Yeah, I'm just saying that to people,
Mm,
like looking after someone else's pets is a full time job. It's like, it's not like, hey, and I can leave the house all day. You have a responsibility. But for me, it worked at the time. But I got a little bit tired of it, and
mhm,
before that, I did like a 2 month work away option where I was doing gardening for 2 months, like building a pond, like super hard
mhm,
work, but good. And that
mhm,
was a cool experience. And I thought, I just want to be in, focus on my business and things like that. I want to have more time for that. And I just wanted to actually just relax a little bit as well, have more relaxing time. But, Airbnbs at that time in Spain, horrendous with money. And I thought, okay, if I want to
yeah,
make it work for a couple of months, I need to find a better option. And yeah, I had this dream. And then one of my friends told me she's going to have a retreat in Bali, and that there's potential option for like a draw, going into like a draw, maybe getting the spot for free as a gift. I was like, oh, wow, okay, that's like complete direction here. And the thing is, I didn't care at that time if I get the spot. I thought it prompted me to actually look at Bali. And so I researched a little bit, just a tiny bit, and looked at the prices for the Airbnb. And I was like, whoa, amazing. So cheap, la la la. Yeah. And a week later, I was already in the airplane
nice.
and
Mhm,
made it happen. And then I started my journey there. So I spent 2 months there. And then of course there was that's a really cool story now, also for people to understand how much I actually am intuitive and learn to tune into my intuition, which is my body will shut down now if I'm doing something that is not in alignment. That's how much I have recalibrated my nervous system, everything. And this is how much it communicates with myself, with anything. If anything is not in alignment, whether it's my environment, the person, an interview I'm meant to have, or working with the client, whatever it is, my body will give me a very strong symptom. It's crazy, but it's a matter of listening to it, and not just listening, but trusting it and acting on it. So there's a story. I was meant to go to Australia on the end of September. I had already applied for the visa. I had my ticket booked because I had to have a ticket to leave Bali before I entered. That's a condition for the visa, because I had a
okay,
2 month visa and you have to show that you actually leave the country. So anyway, that was cool.
mm,
I booked
yeah,
actually a flexible ticket because I thought, I know myself, things can happen. And
mhm,
then it was interesting because I was communicating here with my best friends, but I felt like the school kid at the end of the holidays. They don't want to go. And I thought, why is that? Because I was really looking forward to see them. And I was battling with my own mind. And I was like, that's weird. But they have been, on their own journey, had a lot of shit going on as well. And I was like, okay, let's sit with that. And it was only like 5 days out, or no, a week before I was meant to leave. And I remember I woke up in the middle of the night. My chest was tight. I couldn't, I was sweating. I got all these extreme symptoms, like, like almost like fever aches, and like almost like really like I couldn't breathe. I was like, what is going on? I got this massive channeling, and I saw something is not right there with the house. I saw like a big storm. Like I'm talking metaphorical. That's how I do readings and channeling. So I thought like there's really shit coming down and the house is not good something. And I felt dust and I couldn't breathe. So I was like, I can't go. I just can't go. I don't know. I am not meant to go. This is not the right choice for me. And I have to trust it no matter if I love them. And it has nothing to do with them. There's something that's not right in the energetic field. So what I did the next morning, reluctantly, because I was like, my ego was coming in, yeah, what's going on? What are you doing? But I left a message to my best friend. I said, look, can you tell me the truth? What is truly happening? Where are you at? I know there's something that you're not telling me. Something is going wrong with your landlords, with the house. What is going on in the house? I have a feeling there's some really big shit coming down. You need to get the fuck out of there. I literally said it like that. And as soon as I say that, because when I channel, I need to take myself out of this whole thing. My ego has no space there. I'm just a vessel for the information that comes through. It has nothing to do with me. And yeah, it turned out to be like they had big trouble with the landlords. There was something that the house, there was some dust, and one of my best friends really got an allergic reaction, really bad health conditions, and shit went down. Yeah, the landlords really got like narcissistic, like controlling, abusive, and tried to really, do the stuff. Kind of long story short, that storm that I saw actually happen. And so they went through a whole thing. But the cool thing is, the blessing out of this, it prompted them to actually go here down south where they actually always wanted to go. And they manifested this amazing house, which people are still asking here, how did you do that? Because nobody gets a house like this in this position. You should see it. It's like a dream, and the nature around everything. And so it sped up the timeline. In that moment, of course, people asked, now, okay, what did you do then, Mia? Because obviously my visa was running out. And what I did was literally like, not with the dart, but I literally said, okay, let's see what is going on here. We're in Asia, in Bali, and I had no intention to, I didn't have a plan. And then I thought, what usually people do, because someone told me because you have to leave the country just for a day, but then you can come back and you get a new visa. I said, okay, maybe I do that. But then I looked, should I just fly to Shanghai just for one night, sleep at the airport, not even bother to pay some accommodation and just come back? But I said, why would I do that? Why would I pay a flight and do that and put my body through all this and, travel and things like that? And I said, you know what? Just look for a country. And for some reason, I've always heard about Cambodia and Vietnam, but I always wanted to go at some point. It wasn't really on my radar. So I just pulled out the card and I just literally closed my eyes and was like tuning in. How does Cambodia feel? How does Vietnam feel? Yeah, there was like excitement coming. So I knew this is where I have to go. And I did a tiny bit of research. And then I started booking my flight to Ho Chi Minh City to Vietnam. And that's how I traveled. So it was the best decision ever. And then 3 months later, it was the perfect time to come to Australia. And here I am.
Yeah, it tells you that the human intuition is very strong. And it's like people want to call it Holy Spirit, they want to call it whatever. To me, it's just intuition. So if you listen to your gut, you can definitely, it helps you navigate some of the more trepidatious waters of life. What was your time in Vietnam? How long were you in Vietnam for?
3 months. Yeah.
3 months. Yeah. How was that? Because I want to go too at some point.
Yeah, you should. Amazing. Because the coolest part is because I never planned that, right? So it was like a complete, like, what am I doing? And but the real sign is, and I think that's what we are so conditioned, because I was literally excited like a kid, right? Remember the moment when I felt like I wasn't excited to go Australia at that time, end of September, but the moment Vietnam, my whole chest was opening up. I was jumping around in the room and I knew, okay, that's what I have to do. And I had no clue why. Amazing culture. I was 1 week in Ho Chi Minh City, a big city, but even though it is big and very cosmopolitan and it's very well, like quickly developing, and then because I had the beautiful comparison right away to Bali, I prefer Vietnam over Bali. Vietnam for me was a better experience for me, right? Everybody experiences differently, and the people are very different, and they it's called Indochina. It has the culture from Indonesia, but also the Chinese imprints, like the discipline. And for me, because I wanted to really go to the ocean, to the water, I'm an ocean baby, and so I was like thinking, okay, what's the quickest way? How do I get what part can I go to? And I got guided to Vung Tau, which is about 3 hours south from Ho Chi Minh City. So I took a ferry there, which was great. Loved it, going on the boat and things. And I stayed there my whole time. And I was just like, because I felt the land was calling me, and it was like a beautiful little beach town, I would say, but still very cosmopolitan, and people, oh my gosh, I remember, because usually when I come to a new place, I will always be waking up early, like around 3 or 4, just my nature in that moment, and it's the first, because the excitement. And I thought, I'm gonna go to the beach, I just want to see the stars, I would just want to be. And I thought, I was meditating, and then it was 4 o'clock or something, or 4:30, and then people would literally like starting doing stretching. What's going on? Everybody was like preparing, and they were older people, right? Like all ages, but mostly like older people. And what they actually do is, They go really early. That's a culture. They're really early in the ocean, and they swim, they talk, they dig themselves in the earth, they cover themselves with sand, they connect to nature, they talk while they do this, they have their little morning tea, whatever. They everything happens. They play fucking volleyball at 6 a.m. there in the morning. That's how beautiful it is. Like everybody was like pretty conscious. And that's why I felt probably drawn there. And that was the time for me also. I went really deep into my writing because I also write. And so, yeah, it was really a great time for me to detox, to arrive. It was super cheap, cheaper than Bali, cheaper than Bali. The
Mhm.
food was much better. The markets, fresh markets, right, to get the food. And because I'm raw vegan, so I did go,
Mhm.
I don't go into restaurants, but for someone, when you guys want to go, oh my gosh, you will have such a great experience of all the culinaries. They have really amazing food from what I see, right? It's not my food from what I saw when I
Right.
walked past and things like that, like incredible and so much variety. The people are very open and friendly. Yeah, I had a beautiful experience. The only thing is though, of course, it's still developing country, but I feel Bali was worse. I believe maybe I don't know if I can say that, but the rubbish, right? The consciousness about rubbish
Oh.
and dirt, it's still like I mean, the ocean was shocking. Now when I'm here in Australia, the water is turquoise and I can see the ground.
Mm.
And in Vietnam,
Mhm.
at least where I was, I know there are different, more cleaner places as well, but where I was at that
Mhm.
moment in Vung Tau, it was like when I first jumped into the ocean, I was like, is that really it? It was brownish, but it was also washed off from the river and the sandbank and things, but also the whole rubbish. I know I picked up rubbish every day, and I know it doesn't make a big difference, or it appears to be, but I believe doing nothing is also not the right choice. So at least I do something for Gaia.
Yeah. Well, and plus that helps your soul too.
Yes.
That sounds selfish to say it that way, but it's not. It's like, the good deed makes you feel good,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you, you said you were in New Zealand. Did you ever have any contact with the Maori people?
Yeah, my first partner there
Yeah.
he was Maori. Interesting enough, because I got thrown right into the Maori culture, and I was actually
Mhm.
picking up words there as well, starting to not speak, but I understand a little, of course. It's very integrated. Interesting. Yeah, I fell in love with him like right away,
Mhm.
and of course, something different and Maori, and so I got to experience the real raw Maori culture right away from the get go. I think I had an exclusive experience in both ways,
I bet.
the good thing and also the disadvantages for the culture. And yeah, it's interesting. I can't remember, did I dream about it or did I talk to someone about it recently? Because I was it was in my energy field, so you must have picked it up. It's a beautiful, beautiful culture for sure. But
Mhm.
they also have a lot of things to clear out, and they're
Uh-huh.
definitely much more integrated than the Aborigines here in Australia, because in
Right, yeah.
New Zealand, everything is in both languages. You have Te Reo. Te Reo is the Maori language. Yep, their mother tongue.
Mhm.
And in English. So everything you see both languages everywhere, which is beautiful. And
Mhm.
yeah, so my first partner, he came from, because I was in the northern of the North Island, northern part, was called Bay of Islands. And he was basically living more in the bush. Yeah, so more like far
Mhm.
away. And the place was called Terafiti. It means like where the sun is rising. And yeah, totally like they have like simple housing, and they have their different tribes, and it's really like that. They smoke a lot of weed, like that's a part of their culture. And
Yeah.
yeah, but I had to honor his grandmother at the time. Marara was her name. She was the only pure, don't quote anybody listening, so don't quote me on it, but from memory, it's like she was the only pure raw Maori that was still there, like, and from this tribe there, and everything else already mixed blood, because they that. And she even got, for her services, got the rose from the queen. Yeah. So she
Wow.
was like that.
Yeah.
So I had a real honor. I mean, at that time, I probably didn't know much about it, but
Right.
it was beautiful. And I got to explore the culture and the haka and things like,
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up
yeah,
actually,
my
because
ex.
you see those, like, I know they just had one during a protest there, that they do it before a rugby game, they do it before, whatever, but it's like, I've always been intrigued by that culture. A guy I used to hang out with, his name was Steve, and he spent time with the Maori, and they actually let him get the chin tattoo that they get, the
The
women,
moku,
and yeah, because they wouldn't let him get he wanted the full face, but he's like, they're like, "You're not Maori, dude. You can't do it."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, but you can have the one on the chin, and that's what he got. Those cultures that are able to hold on to their roots like that really truly fascinate me.
Mm,
And it's like the Maori have been in New Zealand for hundreds of thousands of years, probably. I don't know. I'm not a anthropologist, but to be able to hold on and keep that culture pure is, or pure, whatever that means, is to me has always been something that is I've always been drawn to that.
mm,
How people are able to maintain their roots.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
what got you into the spiritual healing thing? Where did that come from?
Yeah, well, I was basically reactivated in New Zealand, but I have always been very much a channel open since I was a kid, but I never spoke about it. I always communicated with spirits. When I was 4, I could see things, but I never spoke
Mhm.
about it because I thought, everybody's doing it. And I had my first past life experience when I was 6 years old. I was literally having a past life vision because I remember I was like in this little pool at home in the garden, sitting, and I completely drifted off. And I saw literally, basically, I was just pure energy and I saw this eagle flying between the mountains and I couldn't see anything else beneath me. And I was like, fuck, is that when you feel like you're dead? And to have this
Uh,
question when you're 6 years old is not a normal question because my mom tried to call me for dinner and I didn't hear her. She called like multiple times, but I never shared that anyways. And so basically, but you know how it is, you tuned into that. I was always very intuitive, had prophetic dreams and things, but I wasn't really diving into it. Right? I didn't know that was something. I just went on with it. But I guess other people would have seen me a little bit different sometimes. And when I went to New Zealand, that's when it got really reactivated, the remembering. And also I found out later that because my father died when I was 13, that he was a seer and healer. So he healed people, but very secretly because it wasn't matching the image that he portrayed to the outside world. And also East Germany. There's a lot of stuff that comes into it. And of course, because I have done
yeah,
and went really deep into that journey, that explains also my being in a spiritual closet. I believe we all have that. It's like the healer witchy wound that we all bring from past lives, if you believe in that. And so will hold you back anyways, naturally. And if you then have a deep imprint from your ancestry and your own family conditioning, that's even stronger. So it took me a long time to really get out of my closet, to be really open about it. And especially when I was doing boxing, it was like, like it was always like I was living like two different lives, sometimes a little bit like that extreme duality there. So yeah, but I just once when it really the Pandora box really got opened up was when I started boxing. But there was someone did like a reading for me the very first time. I've never had that done, and it was a gift from a friend, and that completely blew me away. And when I say reading, so she tapped into my soul records, she tapped into my energy, and she channeled my papa, which nobody ever did before, and she told things. She did not know anything about me. She just knew my name. That's all, and she completely turned my life upside down. I cried for 3 weeks because I felt seen. I was able to grieve for the very first time. It was a big part. I never
uh-huh.
grieved the death of my father. I wasn't able to. Nobody was emotionally available at that time. And I went into masculine doer mode when I was like 13 and I was taking care of everybody. Interestingly enough, I needed the most care, but that's just how my soul chose that in this moment. Yeah. And then I started to remember everything. I started to go in, meditate, and do all the witchy stuff. We learned to work with the moon cycles and connect with my papa. Now he's part of my spirit guide, and he's my spirit guide. And I talk to him every day, and I healed. I started to heal my relationship with him because he was an alcoholic and abusive and things like that, but not towards me necessarily, but I observed it
Right.
all. I saw it all, right? And the little girl, the first love of her life is everybody's
Your
the
father.
father, right? So that was a picture, and I was like, that was my healing, and it's possible. You can do that. That's a power you can. You don't need this person to be present, but you have to be open enough and conscious enough to do that. So lots of healing, and it's beautiful because now it turned out that, well, that's my belief system, because our destiny is pre-written. Our souls have a certain contract. We decide for this lifetime. We decide exactly for everything that is happening, because that is how our soul can grow the fastest way. And yes, to the ego, it's like, fuck, could you not have chosen anything like easier? But no, 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 no. The soul is all about evolvement and growth in the fastest possible way. So it has to be uncomfortable. It has to be, because otherwise we're not growing. And so my papa told me that it was hard for him to choose this lifetime this way, because firstly, the first couple of years, but also how he left. because it was so abrupt and everything. And it was really heartbreaking for him. But our souls chose that because that will help me to fulfill my mission that I came here for to do in this lifetime. And so, yeah, but once it takes a lot of work to come to this consciousness. And now I can say when he died was the saddest, hardest day of my life, yet my happiest at the same time. And I can truly say that with all my heart, because I do believe and I know that if he would have stayed alive longer, I would be still alive possibly. We would have never been able to come that close. We would have never been able to resolve that because too much ego is in the way. And that I just learned to discover. And on my own healing journey, had mentors. I taught us a lot myself, reading, experiencing, practicing, and do that. Spend a lot of time with myself, going inward, reflecting, journaling, being honest with myself. Go there. Whatever feels uncomfortable, I go there. And yeah, this is how I developed all the gifts. And now I can use it to help other people to remember. Yeah.
I have two questions for you. Can you give me two things that you live by that are like your core being?
Always tune into yourself first. Always consult yourself first. Like whatever happens,
Mhm.
if you get triggered, if you have a challenge, like take this 1 or 2 minutes to go inward first before you seek the thing external. I don't think that there's anything wrong with seeking the external. Of course not. It's beautiful, but consult yourself first. I think we are so quick to look for the fix. We don't want to feel that pain or that uncomfortable feeling or oh, triggered me, that person, but go there. That's one thing. And the second thing is like, absolutely everything happens for you. I have no doubt about that, no matter how it appears to be, but I have 100% certainty that everything happens for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other one is you're about to shove off the mortal coil and somebody asks you, what do you want to be remembered for?
Being me. I'm being completely
There you
bold
go.
and going for what I came here to do. That's the thing. Just being in a
Hmm.
unique piece of this whole masterpiece that we all part of.
So, where can people find you?
I have my website and also my Instagram account, YouTube. You can find all of that, all the links on my website. Yeah. But yeah, mainly on Instagram, YouTube, and my own podcast, which is called Din's Talk. Let's Talk Soul. Yes.
Nice. I like it. Well, I want to say thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you taking time and coming and having a chat with me.
Thank you
So,
for holding space, and thank you. It was amazing. It was like a complete flow once over. So it was a great space to just chat and just share something. And I hope that whoever's listening can take something away for them. That's the most important part. Yeah.
absolutely. So, all right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody.